I believe everything that we experience plays into our purpose, our divine purpose here on earth, which is to reflect the infinite power, the spirit that created all things. This is Timika Chambers with Create a Generational Love Cycle. And today is Friday. Friday is the day that I spend time talking about healing from the inside out, not just superficial healing, the bandages that we often grab, drugs, medications, food, more exercise, more control, dominion, greed. Not that, but a healing that is sustainable, a healing that comes from the same power that created earth and beyond the universes, that energy that created the mountains and the waters and the separation, the houses that we see, the plants, the animals, the healing power that created our bodies in different forms for expression, that makes our heart pump, that inflates and deflates our lungs, that causes us to digest food. That same power that resides in us not only heals us physically, but also can heal us mentally, spiritually, emotionally, if we allow it. Perception plays a very critical role in the opposites, in being healed versus being wounded, and expressing pain versus expressing love, and having compassion and understanding and forgiveness instead of holding grudges, and wars versus peace, and forgiveness versus resentment. And I know that I usually will use Friday as a day of really dumping the trash and assessing the inner garden and pulling out those weeds, pulling them up and ridding of them. And weeds are those emotions, consistent negative emotions, thoughts and feelings we that may plant inside of us for and often it is us that are planting those, that people may drop seeds, but it's us that we take in the seed, we allow it to be absorbed within us, and it can happen subconsciously and consciously, happen consciously and unconsciously. Unconsciously is we consistently um, when our soul is consistently fertile with negative emotions, when we believe the world is bad and evil, when we believe that we'll never amount to anything, that we're not good enough, that we fear failure, we fear success, we even fear healing, because healing means that we have to be ourselves. And as in the Course of Miracles, that the what we're most afraid of is the power that resides in us, this subconscious power, this microcosm power of the macrocosm spirit that guides and directs and brings forth life. We have the opportunity to do that. And perception is how we perceive an event to be. Do we look at the bigger picture, or do we focus on the individual aspects? Because of whatever, as you know, in the law of attraction, the law of growth, whatever we focus on, we tend to bring about. We tend to bring more of its liking. We wonder why we're experienced bullying as a child. We never really got over it, and we're experiencing it as an adult, or we have become the person that bullies others, domestic violence, and there's a history of violence as a child that we never really overcame as a child. But yet still we think about that. We have those emotional, those triggers, those daymares and those nightmares, because we continually feed upon that, and it is dramatized within us, our subconscious mind. We have free will. We have free will to decide, to choose how we want to see and experience. We have free will in envisioning our lives and free will in expressing our gifts and talents, and the free will to decide that nothing or no one will stop me from doing what I'm here to do. That why should I feel angry, upset, anxious about what you did or didn't do, what you said or what you didn't say? Why should I feel that way when it can really hamper who I am, when it can stop me from being expressing the highest version of myself? And so when I think about the fertility, the fertile soul that I had, growing up in a home where I evidently saw my father abusing my mother, seeing, police officers or guys in blue uniform, talking as my mother expressed her fear, seeing that in her eyes and desire her need for help as I sat in a closet, as I was pushed in a closet one day by some children and heard this male voice say that, to sit down and to relax and to be quiet, and someone will come in and help you. And as soon as I followed that voice when I was around 3, 4 years old, that came, that my father came in and let me out, and I saw the light again, being in darkness. And I heard this voice that gave me, that I knew, and gave me, helped me to believe and to give me hope. That many times I've heard that voice, even as a child going through my experiences of having pain projected on me. There, someone's emotional, physical pain, and being in pain from what I experienced, and still wanting to enjoy life, but also realizing that something out there loved me, that realizing that life was not supposed to be a struggle, that we're not supposed to hurt other people, that we're not supposed to have these gifts, these abilities to draw and create and let them go to waste. That was not what life was supposed to be. And love does not hurt physically, love does not project pain consistently, but it is something that it is something that I am. It's something that I sought. I believe that because I sought love, somebody else out there wanted love too. That someone else was holding on to the true nature of ourselves, the true being. And I've been sharing because of my fertile ground. I believe that there's no sense of mistakes. That I replaced the word mistakes for life lessons. I wanted a student approach to life. That life was about learning about yourselves, and now I know it's about reflecting the truth. That I listened to my mother's stories, her experiences, as she honestly and told us about the painful experiences she had, and the principles that she cultivated from those experiences. And I use those to build that moral foundation around me, and learning about the Bible and reading it and grasping those principles about love, and understanding that this power is greater than any human being. It wasn't about religion. It was more about spiritual, and aligning with the truths that were within me, and allowing me to um, see someone who wasn't deterred by what people thought about him, Jesus, seeing someone who had a conviction that he knew what he was here to do and no one was going to stop him from doing it. That's what I got from it. It wasn't about Christianity, it was about a spiritual evolution, one that I wanted to be a part of. And so my mother started sharing her life experiences, and I gleaned from those her principles. And I've been sharing those, and I started sharing them a while back. But I've been really focusing on how they help me to heal from the inside out, to not use those external bandages of alcohol, and seeing my father and what it did to our family and what it did to him, and being able to face my emotions and my feelings, and setting that foundation as a child, because adulthood has a whole new different level that's brought to it. And you have to remember the principles, you have to remember your truths that you have as a child. And I believe that many of us have that, and we allow our experiences to rob us from that. They become the weeds in our soil, in our inner garden, and we allow that to rob us. But we can always go back to our true selves. That's the hope, that's the perseverance, that's the trust and infinite power. And so the very first principle, I remember my mother told me, we were going to church. I was wearing these tight shoes. I tried to tell her about the tight shoes, but one day we stopped going to church. And I asked her, I remember being in my brother's room, and I asked her, why we stopped going to church. And she said, God is not in the building, He is in your heart. And what I know now in my about to be 51 is that the infinite intelligence, again, that created everything, resides in us. And the Bible talks about, the laws being put in our hearts and our minds. We know the laws of the universe. We know very well how they are. And it's when we desire to know more, when we have that craving to be all that we were created to be, that it opens up for us, like Edison and Benjamin Franklin and many others who desired to know, art, to tell stories, to paint pictures, to know about electricity, that desire was greater than any pain that they had. And that's what we have to do when we're talking about healing from the inside out, the desire to become all that you were created to be, despite the experiences that you had. And when we do that, we turn those experiences into good, knowing that they fed into our purpose. They helped us to become who we are. My mother also told me that day that everyone has to see God, or seek God for themselves. Know God for yourself. And so I started wanting to know God, and that's where I got the Bible, I got the Lord's Prayer, I got the essence of what Jesus represented, the character, and I started praying. I started wanting to see the innocence in people. I started wanting to live my life, although, anger and frustration and resentment and questioning, about how can I rid of that stain that I felt that was on me. Instead, now it's like, how can I use that stain? How can I help others heal from the inside out? And it's through this spiritual evolution that I realized that no experiences define you, that no child is at fault for what an adult does. When you start thinking about that, when you start thinking about that, I am stronger than the experience, I am still here. When you start thinking about seeing your innocence despite the memories, seeing that child, that curious child, that child has purpose and has meaning. When you start aligning with this power through prayer, through quiet time, through walking and spending time in nature, being outside on our wide porch, uh, wanting to just be amazed, not wanting, but wanting that peace, and just being amazed by the serenity, the poise of the tree that went through the different seasons and still blossomed in the spring and still was just as strong and powerful. Nature reminds us of who we are. And so I didn't go on a religious relationship, although, that did take a little turn because I thought that spiritual wasn't enough. But I am back with myself, knowing that this is exactly what this power wants. It wants a spiritual relationship with us, because the more you desire it, the more it desires you, and the more it unfolds what your true essence is, the more it gives you those principles that are life sustaining. That as I share these with you, I pray that they will bless you, they will inspire you, they will set you on your healing path. That is not about religion, and often we're deterred, we're swayed away from the Bible, we're swayed away from many books, the Quran, and all of those, because we think it's about religion, but it's not. It's about relationship. It's about not just the format, the structure, sitting cross-legged, but it's about a constant seeking and just talking when you feel an urge of talking to the spirit and praying and envisioning your life and using opportunities, using experiences as opportunities, using experiences to show you where your thoughts are, because everything on the outside comes from the inside. If you have thoughts of fear, if you have thoughts of trauma, you tend to attract more of that. And so if you were to change your mind and said, this is not greater than me, that even though I've had these experiences, this is what I desire to have. And that's how I created the curly head boy, the curly head girl, the husband that is less than 5 years older than me, big hands, and creating this life, this house that I'm currently in now, having my office, creating the view, the mountains and the waters, because I believe that just because I went through something doesn't mean I have to continue it. That I have the divine right to create, just like the creator in creating the world and creating everything that we see. I too have that power to create the life that I want to have. You have the power to create the life that you want to have. The more that we continue to nourish the pain, the more pain we often continue to experience. The success, the greatest success is not, or the greatest revenge is success. No, it's not, because you don't want anger to drive you. You want love to drive you, because when anger drives you, it can leave you feeling empty. It can leave you feeling more angry and rage and resentment. It can leave you unfulfilled. But when you let love drive you, when you know that you are from love and there is a loving Father and there's loving laws that are within your heart and that guide this universe, and that you want to align with these laws, you want to align with this love, it changes your total perspective. And so going from having this perspective to not having the perspective to having it again, coming full circle, realizing the truth in that God is in my heart. He's not in a building. I don't need to seek him in a building. You can praise, you can worship with other people. If you choose to go to church, so be it. But God is within me. And so that's where I need to first develop that relationship, where I have my identity, where I begin to love myself, where I begin to accept my life and accept myself and all that I've gone through, where I begin to forgive others and see them as someone that played a part in who I am. When I forgive myself and release the emotions and feelings that cause disease, the fears, the anxieties that take away sleep, quality sleep and rest, the insomnias that we hear about and see, the diabetes, that I don't need to live a stressful life. I don't need to struggle with my health. I need to put myself in the right place to have the right thoughts, the right feelings, to attract the right people with the right pay, with the right work, that you can have that as you seek that inner power in you that created you, that heals you, that breathes for you, that sends nourishment throughout your body. Your body. We've heard of people healing physically. We need to hear more of people healing mentally and emotionally and spiritually, because we're one. We're one and the same, and we're here to love, not to hate. This is Timika Chambers with Create a Generational Love Cycle. Today I shared one of the top principles that my mother shared with me when I was a young girl, about 10 or 11 years old. That God is in your heart. He is not in a building. And that led me to having a relationship with this power, this infinite power, this intelligence. I called it God, I call it infinite power, I call it Great Spirit in my book as a master gardener. But seeking it and seeking my identity, and along finding out who I am and what I'm here to do and expressing that. So may you embrace the God within you. May you nourish the God within you, and may you express the God within you, because the world needs it. The world needs you to heal from the inside out.